The first time I visited Europe, the thing that stuck out to me above all else was the level of equality. It seemed like, at least from the outside looking in with my limited observation, that most people were living on an equal playing field. I didn't really see the level of poverty that you see in countries like Thailand, where I'm filming this video, or the USA. And whenever I returned back from Europe and I saw people living in the homeless encampments in the USA, it really made me wonder, why is it that America is seen as this prosperous place when you have so many people living in poverty? Well, there was a time in the far, far distant past that a lot of Americans were actually living in relatively equal conditions. After World War II, you saw a higher degree of equality in terms of lifestyle. Now, of course, that's discounting people who look like me, who obviously during those times would have had it much, much worse, but I digress. For the majority of Americans, there was a degree of equality that you simply do not see anymore, unless you are in Europe. Because in Europe, the average person is still living a very good life by worldly standards. But unfortunately, with each passing day, that is no longer the case in the USA. Bearing that in mind, in this video, I'm going to be reacting to a video from A Homestead Journey about how the collapse of everyday life in America has begun. So without further ado, let's get into this reaction.
There is no doubt about it that the American economy is struggling right now. Whether it's people not getting jobs, people losing their jobs, or people not even paying their bills, you're starting to see this more and more when you look around.
So let me get this straight. Inflation is going to keep going up. Taxes are going to keep going up. Interest rates are going to keep going up. National debt's going to keep going up. Wages are probably going to be going down now with the implementation of AI. It's going to make like easier mundane shit, much easier to do. So what's the end game here? So if you're not already rich, or you're not going to be rich very soon, what is really the end game here?
So I love that he threw in that stipulation that if you're not already rich, or if you're not going to be rich very soon, what's the end game? Because younger me, if I'm being completely honest, would have said that the solution to this problem is just to become rich. If you can become rich, then you can insulate yourself from these issues. The problem is that insulating yourself from these issues doesn't actually equate to solving them. So I like to bring up this analogy a lot, but in America, I feel like in lieu of fixing the roads, and this is both a metaphorical and literal example, in lieu of fixing the roads, making the roads better, people simply buy nicer cars. But what about the people that can't afford nicer cars? They have to deal with those tire pressure warnings and all of the damages that those bad roads will inflict upon their cars. Whereas if you simply take the same money that you would have spent on that S-Class or that Rolls-Royce or Range Rover and you move to Europe where they already have nice roads, you don't have to worry about it. And so that one example, although it seems mundane, is actually a very good example of the difference in mentality between Europe and the USA.
Actually asking you, what is the end game?
So I just got my Ameren bill. Mind you, I live in Missouri. Single household, so it's just me, my dog, my two cats. House isn't huge, not even, it's normal, right?
So I already know this bill is about to be crazy because he didn't even wait until he got back inside to turn the camera on and start filming this video. This man got the mail from the mailbox and immediately pulled his camera out. That's how I know this is about to be outrageous.
Bed, two bath, nothing crazy, a little under 1,700 square foot, literally nothing crazy, right? My bill, $282.99. Carla Joe, vacation's over, girl. Vacation is over. Where are the brothers at? But honestly, when does it end? When does it stop?
It stops when people vote better people into office.
$830.27. Anybody want to guess what that is? You won't guess, so I'm just going to share it with you. That is my electric bill this month. Okay?
$800 for electricity? Look, my rent here in Thailand is a little over $400 a month. We're about to go to Vietnam. The rent out there is going to be closer to $380 a month. $800 for electricity? I mean, unless she's living in a mansion or something, that is completely unjustifiable.
Full disclosure, that is less than last month. Our bill last month was $1,130.98.
Even my apartment in the USA, this was back in 2022 for context, my apartment in the USA had a rent of around $1,182 a month. $1,100 and some change every month for a full, big, one-bedroom apartment in a very affluent part of the DFW area. I don't know where she lives or what kind of house she has or what their habits are, but even with inflation, I have to imagine that maybe their habits are a little bit off for their bill to be looking like that. That's crazy.
I'm sorry, it's insane. That is my mortgage payment plus more. Okay?
I completely retract everything I just said. So if her electric bill is surpassing her mortgage payment, then it's not that they have a really big house, because $1,100 a month for a mortgage is probably not going to get you that much house, even in a lower cost of living area. So I don't know what America has going on. That should be almost impossible. Even if you leave the lights on literally 24/7, I don't see how it's possible to run up an electric bill of $1,100 a month.
I don't know how anybody is expected to pay that. So, I mean, our house is big. It's not huge. It's not a mansion. It's about 2,500 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 3 baths. We had 5 children. Our bills with our children, all 5 living at home, were between $400 and $700 a month. So we have called the electric company. They've come out. We live beside a restaurant. We were adamant that we were paying the electric company's bill also. I mean, it's ridiculous. Who can afford even $400 a month for electricity?
So I love that she added in that extra context, because again, that just further substantiates that I was wrong and that it has nothing to do with their habits, because if they had the same habits and they were paying $400 to $700, I think she said, per month, and suddenly they're paying $1,100, that is very likely not their fault.
They expect us to pay $830 or $1,130. So, yeah, I logged in this morning to see what our bill was when it was due, $830.27.
So we got our electric bill for the month of July, $650. For the month of June, it was $560. For the month of August, if it keeps raising, our electric company, CenterPoint Energy, they're pieces of, we will have given them $2,000 in 3 months just for our electric bill.
So she is absolutely heated, and I don't blame her one bit, because that's criminal. What I want you to do, assuming you're from Europe, or if you're from the US or anywhere else in the world, what I want you to do is I want you to, if you're comfortable, comment below what your monthly electricity bill looks like. As a matter of fact, just comment what you paid for your last electricity bill. I'd love to see the difference between what you're paying and what they're paying, because I have to assume that you are paying a lot less than they're paying.
I can't afford that. And if I can't afford that, I can't imagine other people and what the they're paying. This is bull. Like they're forcing us to not pay our bills so that they can force us out of our houses or something. This is absolutely bull.
I think there's a lot more people that's not paying their bills than media wants you to know. They've been real quiet about this issue. And I'm not talking about utilities like necessities. I'm talking about, I really don't think there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people that's not paying like medical bills, their mortgages, credit card bills, and any other bills, you know, you've accumulated other than like water, electricity, and gas. Because I don't think the American government wants people to get the idea that if they stop paying their bills, nothing's going to happen. but I think that's what's happening. I know.
Well, to say that nothing's going to happen is a little bit inaccurate depending on your situation, because in the US, they do keep track of your credit score, which I've come to realize is not necessarily a thing in a lot of European countries, at least the Netherlands. I don't know about other European countries. Comment below if you have a credit score equivalent in your country. But if you don't pay your bills, they're going to ruin your credit score and you're not going to qualify for accommodation. So I wouldn't take that approach personally. I would actually take the approach that I ended up taking, which is move overseas so you don't have to worry about that. If this is the kind of conversation you're having where you're thinking about, oh, I'm just not going to pay my bills because what can they really do? It's time to leave. It is time to go at that point. Cancel your lease, terminate your lease, sell your car, sell your stuff, use that money to book a ticket to Thailand, to Spain, to Portugal, pretty much anywhere else. Just throw a dart at a map, and as long as the dart doesn't land on a country that is currently at war, you will probably be fine. You'll be much better off than you are in the US.
That there are a lot of people who stopped being able to afford their mortgage, and they still in their houses, and it's been 2-3 years. Because whether they admit it or not, we've been in a recession for years. And I think once the rest of us realize that, wait, I stopped paying my credit card bill and really nothing's happening other than it's messing up this phantom credit score, and everybody's credit is jacked up.
My credit is not jacked up. My credit is not jacked up. And I'm not saying this to put those people down. I'm saying this to say that there is a much better way to approach that situation than to just completely neglect your responsibilities. If you're pulling out loans, if you're pulling out mortgages, then you are obligated to pay them, even if they are exorbitant. If you don't want to pay them, if you feel like they're unfair, then leave. But that, in my opinion, just not paying them is not the answer. And she didn't even mention student loans. Let's not even get into that because I can go all day when it comes to student loans. But student loans, if you don't pay your student loans off, you can't renounce your US citizenship. I'll just leave it at that.
So now what? I think a lot of people aren't paying bills. So, I mean, I stopped paying some bills. I'm like, I ain't paying this mess. Shoot, put it on my credit report. I get it off.
Have you guys stopped paying your credit cards yet? Because I promise I am about 2 seconds away from not paying my credit cards. Literally, just the thought of going grocery shopping makes me sick. Like, how the hell is anyone even affording anything right now? My husband drives a 2017 GMC Sierra, and it's $240 to renew his insurance. And we still had to pay $195 on top of that for the last month's insurance. Let's not get started on electric and how much it's going up. I just got a notice saying that our water bill was going up, and my electric company keeps on playing games with us. So with that being said, I'm literally 2 seconds away from not paying my credit cards no more. Because at this point, I got my house. I'm not financing a car. I can't refinance this house because my credit's so freaking shot that it doesn't matter. So I'm really about to say F them credit cards and not pay them.
So I think that this is also a consequence of the American mentality or approach to consumerism. What I mean by this is when you go to Europe, and again, I'm speaking for the European countries I'm most familiar with. If your European country or your country in general is different, then enlighten me in the comments. I'd love to learn more. But at least for the Netherlands, credit is not really something that most people are using on a day-to-day basis. Of course, people are pulling out mortgages to buy their houses, but it seems like a lot of people, when they're buying cars, they're buying secondhand cars cash. And I don't know what the insurance requirements are out there, but I know that whenever you own your car outright in the US, you don't have to get the top of the line insurance because the car is yours. Is that the best idea? I'll leave that up to you to decide. But what I do know is that I think a lot of Americans, what they really need to do is they need to go in their wallet, pull their credit card out and go into their kitchen, grab a pair of scissors, and just cut the credit card up and recycle it. Because a lot of people, they have all of this power with the credit card, but they never really developed the financial acumen to utilize the credit cards properly. And because of that, you're gonna see a lot more people in situations like this right here. Not saying that that's the reason why she's in this situation in particular, but I feel like this is a relevant example of why credit cards are generally not a good idea for most people.
Am I the only one?
You know how I know America is struggling? It's been about 14 days since I had one single job. I went a whole year working at least 1 or 2 jobs per day. And now, 14 days, nothing's changed, everything's good, I got good reviews, everything's, you know, I'm a handyman, so do yard work, electrical, all sorts of stuff. 14 days, I have not had one single job. Nothing's changed, everything's good. I'm getting clicks, I'm getting, you know, everything's good. That tells me that Americans are going super broke. They're trying to do things themselves, which is fine, but 14 days, not one single job.
And this is an honest, hardworking man right here. This is someone who is fulfilling a need that pretty much all Americans have: electricity and landscaping. A lot of Americans have yards, they need landscaping, otherwise they risk HOA fines. That's a whole different discussion for a whole different day. If you don't know what HOA fines are, don't worry about it for now. We'll talk about that in another video. But his services are in high demand, I would think. But to his point, if people don't have the money to afford them, then, I mean, is it really that essential? And I think a lot of Americans, especially people like him who are freelancers, they are going to realize very, very quickly that their essential work is not nearly as essential as they thought it was, which is very unfortunate. Can only imagine how much worse it's going to get.
The struggle is about to get real, y'all.
And I want to share a quick story. The other day, I got a phone call. When it went to voicemail, I didn't recognize the number. The phone call was for a company that we worked with back in 2018. They contacted us and asked if we are in the market for a new home and if we need a home inspector to please go ahead and give them a call. So when we got that call and we listened to the message, we really thought, wow, people are getting pretty desperate right now because we have not heard from this company all this time. And all of a sudden you're reaching out after this many years. 2018 was a long time ago. You're contacting us to see if you could potentially get any work from us. Wow. I mean, that was a shocker, but that's kind of what you're seeing nowadays. You're seeing people really hurting for work and they're doing whatever they can to make ends meet.
I am afraid. I'm not even gonna lie. I am afraid.
And again, I'm not going to harp too much on this subject, but student loans, that's a major trap in this day and age. It's a major trap because although education is very valuable, you have the internet and AI, which are essentially devaluing education because it makes education accessible to all. Why go and pay $100,000 and put yourself in that kind of debt and you're not even guaranteed to actually get a job at the end of it? There's really no incentive at this point. But a lot of Americans, they don't realize that yet. They're operating on outdated principles, and it's only a matter of time before we really start to see the compounding effect of that mistake that so many Americans are making.
Afraid of not being able to pay my rent. The electric is going up in the state I live in. Gas, car insurance, medical insurance doubled. I am responsible for providing a roof over my grandkids' head. I don't know how I even got in this situation. How did I even get here? My landlord told me straight up, I'm raising your rent every single year. It's going to get to the point that I can't even pay it because I'm having a hard time paying it now. I cannot believe I'm even at 53 years old saying this. Like, I was never afraid when I was younger at all, raising 2 kids all by myself financially.
Okay, I know I keep pausing the video, I apologize, but I kind of have a dualistic perspective on this, on all of these stories, because on one hand, it is true that America is overpriced. That's not even worth arguing. America is definitely overpriced for what you get. I always like to compare America to a restaurant that is very expensive, but the food actually isn't that good. It's just all hype and marketing. But then on the other hand, I see someone like this and I'm looking at the interior of her car. I don't know what kind of car this is, but I don't see a whole lot of cheap cars with interiors that look like this. So I also have to wonder if maybe part of this is, again, that American consumerism as well. So there is, of course, a component of personal accountability that Europeans seem to have a much better understanding of. They're okay living without air conditioning or living without the newest car or even having a manual car, a hatchback, things that a lot of Americans would feel too good for, but really functionally, they're all the same thing. A car gets you from point A to point B. Again, I might be jumping the gun here, but it's hard to feel very empathetic for her talking about her money problems when she's sitting in a car that looks like this.
Ever. I'm a grown ass woman and I am so afraid. It keeps me up at night sometimes. If I didn't have other people depending on me, I would not be afraid. I could just go anywhere.
How are y'all saving money? Like, can someone please let me in on your secret? Because
the secret is to go overseas. That's the secret.
I cannot save money for the life of me. I cannot do it. I try so hard to save money. This is what happens. I get paid every 2 weeks. So when I get paid, I'll pay bills and I put money into my savings account, okay? I put it in there and I tell myself, okay, I'm not going to touch it. I got to save this money, whatever. Well, I have 2 weeks till I get paid again. So it is always something. Every time I put money in my savings account, I have to get it out for something. But my family can't go without food. I can't go without gas. Like, I'm not spending the savings account money like on anything that's not a need. So what the how are you guys saving money?
I think with someone like her, maybe she just needs a budget, honestly. She might just need a budget because it sounds like she's underestimating where her monthly expenses actually are. And that's a mistake that I used to make, where I would put a bunch of money into my savings and then I would end up spending a lot more than anticipated, and then I'd have to pull money out of my savings. And then once you open those floodgates, all hell can break loose. So again, personal accountability is very important. And what I want to know is, if you're European, how did you become so astute financially? Because it seems like a lot of European people have a better understanding of how finances work. Is that something you learned in school, or was it passed down from the prior generations? I'm curious to know that.
Do not get it.
Am I the only one that feels like there's going to be like a big economic crash that happens in, I don't know, the next 6 months? Like, the jobs numbers don't make a whole lot of sense for like a really healthy economy. I know a lot of people are feeling the effects of inflation, what's going on at the grocery store. I know the stock market is really inflated, but it seems like it's very speculative, very AI driven, which I feel like there's probably some form of an AI bubble. Not saying AI is not important, I just don't understand some of the valuations that are put out there. It seems like a lot of stocks are inflated because of buybacks and stuff like that. And fundamentally, I just don't feel like people are actually doing very well. And when the American consumer isn't doing well, there typically leads to a crash.
And again, I might be jumping the gun here. He's not really talking about his own personal situation. But look at the background of this house. You can see that's a big stainless steel refrigerator. You have the stainless steel oven, stainless steel appliances. Those are not cheap at all. And again, he might be able to afford those things comfortably, but I do have that dualistic perspective that, of course, Americans do owe it to themselves to have some semblance of personal accountability surrounding their consumeristic ways. But if they have that accountability, they should be able to operate with a high quality of life. I think that right there is the reconciliation point, is that if you do the right things, you should live a good life. In America, it seems like that is no longer the case for too many people.
And when the American consumer isn't doing well, there typically leads to a crash.
I have a question for everybody who like lives in the city, lives in a house, pays mortgage, works, does all the normal things. I've been out of the system for about 7 years now. Do you have a game plan for when the systems all collapse? Like, things are collapsing as we speak right now. Do you have a game plan? And what is that? Because for the past 16 years, I've been trying to create village, community, resources for collaboration and a new way of thinking, being, living. But people aren't really on board with that. So do people have another plan? Like,
She raises a really good point. Americans are incredibly stubborn, and a lot of times, until they actually faceplant on the dirt, they don't really understand that their current model is unsustainable. They're focused on the next quarter's reports, so to speak, speaking in a metaphorical sense here, rather than thinking about the long-term growth potential of the company, or in this case, the country.
what is your plan? Are people just going to ignore the fact that systems are collapsing and continue going to work every day?
Most of us have lived our lives without having to worry about supply. Well, it's coming to an end, guys. The supply chain has been eroding since 2008. Prices have been going up since then. I remember a time back then that I could go into a store, any store, find anything I wanted on my list, go to one store. Now I have to go to 4. And the prices are sky high. I am blessed.
So, again, I don't want to jump the gun and say that she's privileged or any of these other people are privileged per se, but when she talks about having to go to multiple different stores to get all of the stuff that she wants, that's normal. That's normal around the world, especially in places like Europe. I think the problem with this is in the US, these stores like Walmart and Target take up so much space, but at least according to her, they're not supplying all of the things that people are needing. So that is problematic if true. I wouldn't know because I'm in Thailand, but
To have a friend nearby who gives us free eggs laid by her chicken. We gift her something, something canned, because she's a blessing on earth. And sometimes she allows us to pay for what she gives us. I think maybe once. So we still are in the category of having a lot of blessings in our house, in our lives, and we're not lacking anything. But those days are coming where people are going to that haven't lacked anything are going to start lacking, and then you'll hear the shouts. Just think, you wake up one day, lights are out, no gas stations are running. It's chaos on the streets in a vehicle. No banks are open. You can't use your credit cards anywhere. And grocery stores are shut down. How long would you exist on what you have? You got to think on those terms during today. You have to.
So one thing I will say is that as I heard her talking about all of the things she's talking about, I couldn't help but think that I might have found the answer to my question earlier about how European people, especially Western Europeans, became so financially astute. I think it's more a psychological thing than it is an actual technical proficiency when it comes to finance. I think that Western Europeans, as a result of the conditions after the war, I want to say it was World War I, but it might have been World War II. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I'm going to assume that you know much more about this than I do. But I know in the aftermath of at least one of the world wars, a lot of European people were living in relative poverty, and they had to really, really make the most of the little that they had. And because of that, although Europe is no longer in a place where lack is a feature of society, the psychological ramifications of that time period are still very present in modern European society. In layman's terms, Because of that period of lack, Europeans are more frugal and efficient with their money.
Sorry, guys, you have to face up and be prepared.
What I want to tell everyone is don't put your head in the sand. Use this time wisely to prepare for what's coming down the pipeline, because you don't know how bad it's going to get, and you don't know how bad it can affect your family, what the impacts are going to be. What I do recommend is to sit down either by yourself or with your family if you have one, and think about 3 different things that you can do right now to better prepare for the future. Everybody can do something, and it doesn't matter how small of a step or how small of a thing it is. We can all do something. So think about 3 things. If it's saving more money, if it's finding a side hustle, getting a different job, moving, thinking about what kind of family you can move in with, thinking about what other changes you can make in your lifestyle, if you need to stock up on some more food, if you need to maybe get some more preparedness type items, because again, you don't know what can happen in the future, and it's always wise to have certain things, certain provisions. But think about, what are your next best steps?
Again, if you're focused on stockpiling food for an impending apocalypse or anything of that sort, then maybe your best option is to just leave. I don't know, that's just me personally. That's how my mind operates, is that once that becomes a point of contention, it's time to go.
You want to buy some land, or you're thinking about maybe going off grid. You know, that's something that we are really wanting to do. We would love to be off grid in the future and just separate ourselves more and more from these modern day systems. It's something that we're working on, and we have different steps that we're trying to take. So think about what it is that you and your family want to do. What are going to be the best things that you guys can do? And again, don't get hung up on, you know, if you can't move or you can't do certain things that you see other people doing. Do what you can do, and that's okay. You know, we all can do something, and it doesn't matter if it's a small step or a big step. You shouldn't let that stop you. So I hope this is an encouragement to you. Share.
So if you're an American who's in a position like this, or if you're from somewhere else and you're in a position like some of the people throughout this video, here are my 3 tips for you to get out of that situation. Number 1, get rid of your credit card. Your credit card is causing much more damage than benefit in your life. Just get rid of it, cut it up literally before this video is over. Pause the video, cut it up, recycle it, and go on about your life. Once you do that, the next step is to downgrade your lifestyle. You think you're living with the bare bones minimum lifestyle, you are not. If you have leather seats in your car, you need to sell your car. If your house has any spare bedrooms, you need to sell your house. You need to get rid of all the excess in your life, because the only reason why you have those things is because you've been fooled into believing that those things would elicit a feeling of happiness. And clearly, that is not the case. If you are heeding my advice, if you feel the need to heed my advice, that is, that's not the case. You're not happy. Get rid of the stuff. You'll feel much, much better for it. I'm not telling you to do anything I myself have not done. I had to get rid of my nice apartment. I had to get rid of my BMW. I had to get rid of all of my clothes that I had bought to improve my brand image and all of this other stuff that really doesn't matter. And I felt much better for it. Get rid of the excess. 3rd, move overseas. Plain and simple. Get away from America. America is a sinking ship with a limited number of lifeboats. Get on one of those lifeboats while you still can.